good friend of mine, guest speaker that's on today. I'm going to have him share a little bit about why he's not in a suit. He's like, can you tell the guys why I'm not in a suit? And for the record, he's in Mammoth. If you guys that are out in the West Coast know anything about what's going on with the weather, Sebastian, you said 3 to 5 feet you guys got last night?
No, over the first part of the week, which caused some trouble for us. The 395 was shut down for 2 days, which is the only freeway up here. It was crazy, and I don't think I've ever seen that. They literally shut down a freeway for 2 days. You couldn't get up or down the mountain.
Wow,
so much snow.
Well, I am pumped to have you on today, Sebastian. Obviously, we've known each other for a while. For anyone that's new to the call, this is my helpless plug. Go to YouTube. All the managers and partners on. Go to YouTube. Type in KLEAR channel. Please subscribe. We're over 1,000 organic subscribers since we started the channel. And
Nice.
It seems like a lot of people are within the organization that are subscribing. So Sebastian, you and I have known each other for a while. If you cool with us just jumping right in and getting into some Q&A?
Let's do it.
So first of all, we've known each other. We met, 2000. When you started in the office in LA, what, 2010?
2010. Yeah.
2010 in Rancho Cucamonga.
Yep.
Do you mind telling, what were you doing before we met? Tell me about life. I know you have an incredible family, younger brother. I mean, tell us a little bit about life and family, where you grew up, etc.
Yeah, and so you were actually met you and Juanice the same day, which was cool. At the time, you guys were partnered. But I started my first business when I was much younger, and I was 11, and that it just creates some frames for context. I was trying to help my mom. I was raised by a single mom that worked her ass off to try to support Joel and I as kids. And so 11 years old, I think, hey, I'm functional, I'll go get a job. So I tried to go apply a bunch of places. Nobody would hire me. Got pretty frustrated by that. Later found out it's mostly because of child labor laws. But at the time I was frustrated. I was like, dude, I'm a willing, able body here. Like, put me to work. But somebody, I don't know if it was at like a youth group or church or some meeting I was in. I don't exactly know the context, but somebody walked up to me and handed me Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I absorbed it, just devoured the book, and came out of it thinking, I got to run my own business. That's like, ironically, God bless capitalism. God bless the United States. You can't work for somebody else at 11 years old, but you can start your own business. And so that's exactly what I did. Hired my brother's friends, my friends, and picked blackberries all summer. The fruit and
the fruit
and sold them all to the local restaurants, and did really well. I mean, we made more money than my mom did that summer. And I only bring that up because it solidified this idea that, like, I don't ever want to be in a situation where I'm not getting paid on my performance. And that was her problem. I mean, the whole thing got triggered because I woke up to her at like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. It was still pretty early, but Joel and I were already in bed crying. And I go downstairs and she's sitting at the kitchen table and trying to figure out her bills. And so I sit down with her, and I'm oldest son, trying to figure this out with her. And I'm like, oh, I see the issue here. You've got more month than you do money. And she's like, yeah, no shit. And so, that was the whole thing. I was like, well, how do you make more money? And she's like, I can't. Like, I get paid what I get paid. And I was like, that's just crazy. So anyway, it totally changed my frame. So that was an early experience for me. I always knew I was going to ultimately run my own businesses. But I went through a season of learning how to run businesses. I worked for other people, learned things from them. And so I'm obviously not opposed to working for other people, but you either work for other people to get an education or as an entrepreneur, but be tied to a business that's growing, that ties performance to what you're doing. And that was the big takeaway I got early in life. And then before I got involved with our business, I was hired by T-Mobile. When they had just opened, they just branded themselves Deutsche Telekom by AirTouch, and then branded themselves T-Mobile. And so I helped them launch their retail division, which had a lot of experience at that point in sales and in retail, and had a great time. I loved it. It was very entrepreneurial, got lots of sales team, managed lots of different locations. And that gave me a very unique perspective on our business and the opportunity that we had, because I worked for the corporate side, and then my counterpart worked for, he managed what we called the authorized dealers, and they were not unlike what we do. They were licensed to sell T-Mobile product. The problem is they spent $300,000 to $500,000 just to get in the game. That was their cost to represent T-Mobile's brand. And so, and I knew some of them did very well, but it was a huge cost to them, huge liability, right? And they're taking, I knew, because I worked with a lot of these guys, they took mortgages out on their house, pulled equity lines of credit, borrowed money to do it, had $100,000 in inventory at least. They had to find retail space. They had to figure out how to get people to their location. Marketing and advertising was crazy. They had to train and develop their own people. The cost and liability was extremely high, and some of them did well, but most of them got their ass kicked. And so there was that side, and I saw that opportunity. And AT&T at the time was our biggest competitor, right? And there was a point when T-Mobile was working to position themselves, and that's back when I exited, when I left, to get bought out by AT&T. That was their plan: build up the network and then sell it back to AT&T. And then obviously it got shut down for anti-competitive reasons. And then I had my managers, just to complete this frame, I'll stop. I had my managers who ran stores that worked 24/7. They worked 7 days a week, managing a store location. They had a lot of responsibility. Some of those stores brought in literally $1 million, $2 million. My best store, almost $3 million in the mall a year. And my managers were making $50,000, $60,000 a year. They'd get maybe some bonus money at the end of the year, depending on how the store did. And so when I came into our business, those were my frames. I'm like, wait, you can sweat equity your way into representing the biggest brands in the world, and your upside is $1 million. Brennan Fulkerson, some of you guys may know, it did 1.2 million, just over 1.2 million cash to him personally this year. Right? That's the upside of being an ICL owner, right? Where T-Mobile, you could crush it, have the same year, and you're still going to make $50,000, $60,000. And so that was unbelievable. In fact, when I came in, I was skeptical, but not for any reason, not because of Ken or Juanis or interviewing. It was just because I'm like, okay, if this is true, why isn't everyone doing this? Like, why would you ever go work for T-Mobile? Why would you ever go work for AT&T? And that was my frame. And so it took me a little bit. I called some of my friends at T-Mobile, and I said, hey, I think I just found the freaking gold mine here. Just give me a few weeks to check it out, make sure this is what it seems like it is. And then, to kind of finish this, good friend of mine, who started at T-Mobile right around the same time I did, still works there. 20 years later, we play fantasy football every year together. And that's fun for me because I've got to see how his choices, staying with the same company, have led, and he's a good dude, so I'm not disparaging his situation, but let's just say his path has been much different, and his income is much different than mine, almost 20 years later. And now he's asking me, in fact, he's working on this Costco pilot for T-Mobile. And so now he's asking me questions about what I do. And he's like, wait, what? And he's like, so it's interesting, full circle, how this came to be. So I'll pause there, but yeah, that's the early frame for me in the business. And that gave me a competitive advantage, because I didn't come in necessarily looking for work. And I wasn't a young 20 something. I was an older 20 something. I think I just 29 or 30 years old. And so I had a different perspective on our business than somebody coming right out of college who's like, what, I got to go, work at Walmart or a Costco or a Target, or going door to door, whatever, you're doing. Like, I'm doing sales. Like, no, from the very beginning, I knew this only made sense to be a consultant.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me this. So just kind of flip the frame a little bit. Describe Sabastian in one word.
One word. That's a good question. I don't know. Right in the moment, what comes to mind is potent. So I'm going to say that.
Why?
The only reason I'm here is to bring effect to the earth. That's it. I'm not here to dilly-dally. I measure everything for an impact and influence.
And so with that frame, who do you the single most important influence on your life? Who's that been?
Well, it sounds probably egomaniacal to say, but probably me. But if you're teasing out like who my influences have been, I grew up being obsessed with history for probably a number of reasons. So the forefathers were huge for me. The U.S. forefathers, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington resonates deeply with me. So mostly people of history. There isn't a human alive that I've modeled my life after, which is always hard because people always ask me that, like, who's your mentor, who's coaches? I can learn from anyone, from a 2-year-old to a billionaire, and I have. But I think I learned from history mostly.
And who would you say, obviously, to your point about influence, you've had a chance to influence not only a ton of people within our organization and what we do day to day, but you have other ventures you've created because this venture's gone so well for you. Is there someone that stands out besides your family? I know your brother, you've had an incredible impact on, and I think you even got him to come in, and now he runs an office in the business and everything else, right? But besides people in your family, is there someone that you've made an impact on that is just it's really stands out among everybody that you're really proud of?
There's lots of people that I'm excited that I've been able to connect with and impact, but there isn't a specific person, because I appreciate the question, but I'm not hardwired to think like that. I think in aggregate, like, what is the maximum impact on humans? And so I get a lot of feedback, especially as we've expanded my brand this last year. It's been pretty humbling to hear just the amount of feedback from people who started watching our content a year ago, that like my life's changed. Like, I had a woman last night who said, I've been following you for the last year. I've doubled my income and my life has never been better. And it was like, whoa, like just those sorts of things are really cool. And that's for me what it's about, is giving people tools that they can test and employ in their life and own them, because they realize it's not what some random dude on the internet said. There's a truth here that I can apply to my life that works, right? There's a technology to it. And that's always what I say. Like, I'm not interested in teaching people what to think. I'm very interested in teaching people how to think, and then they can employ the information and see for themselves that it works.
It's interesting because, not just in what we do, it's so what you've learned by doing the field and what we do, leading people and coaching an organization, and obviously you've hit some incredible milestones in our business, and which are relatively small, in my opinion, the milestones you're going to hit in your life. You've got a chance to have people come into your life and you help and support, and then I bet you there's even people you removed from your circle, right? We always talk about the 6 people closest to you are the most influential, not only for you, but you make the most impact on. Why would you remove somebody from being around you? What are some things, like, for anyone young? Obviously, I know that influence and that kind of circle of friends, and that plays such an important role in somebody, where they're going to go. Any thoughts around that, just in general?
Yeah, I mean, this is a fun one for me. We were just talking. I'm up here with the Phoenix 5. And we're planning, 2023.
Do you mind explaining who that is? Because I know there's people. I know who that is, but
yeah, the Phoenix 5 is my crew. I mean, we built the organization, and they probably don't get nearly as much credit as they deserve. But that's my crew. That's, for me, if I was going to be stuck somewhere on a mountain, that's who I want to be with. They're a bunch of fucking savages. And we have a lot of fun together, but we kick ass together, and we built the organization, and we're building our business. But we were talking about that last night. It's questions to ask. And this is stuff I'm going to be, for those who haven't heard my content, I'll be talking about this a lot in the coming weeks. And then Top Gun next week, we're hosting a couple hundred people in Orange County. And one of the themes is, what are you leaving behind in 2022? What isn't coming with you? And that could be a person. So I'm going to answer that question in a second, or people. But what are you leaving behind? What no longer serves you? What no longer is coming with you? And then what are you bringing with you? Right? What has a place in your life? And it is really important that you assess those things. And I realize this is, maybe without getting into the weeds, it's probably lifetimes of work, but this is something that's inherent to who I am. Like, I don't I'm loyal to values before people, and I've always been that way. And so I don't, to your question, I don't think, I could be wrong, but nobody's immediately coming up. I don't think that I've consciously removed anyone from my life. How I show up generally removes themselves, because I just don't have anything. Now, that doesn't, I guess one way you could say that is, as you grow in success, you have to learn how to say no, right? There's an opportunity cost to everything. And so learning how to say no is an incredibly important. I guess in that way, maybe potentially you're removing people from your life because you're just saying, no, hey, I don't want to go do that. Or, hey, I don't have time to do that. It kills me as an example. I get pretty regularly, people are asking me for mentorship or coaching, and I don't currently offer any one-on-one coaching, paid one-on-one coaching outside of our business. I just don't have the bandwidth for it. People are like, and they tell me their story, and they're like, please mentor me. And I'm like, man, I get where you're coming from. And I'm like, I want to teach you how to get somebody's attention. But what you're missing is there's a cost to me to say yes to that, right? There's a cost of my time. And I have to think in terms of opportunity cost. So if I'm spending an hour with you a week or even a month, what am I saying no to? Because if I'm saying yes to you, it means I'm saying no to other things. So what in the world makes you valuable enough that I should be saying no to all these other things? I can tell the frame somebody's coming from when they ask that, because I've learned early in life, people who don't value time generally don't value money, right? And so that's generally somebody who's early in life, who's got a lot of fucking time on their hands. And so for them, it's like, hey, I've got the time. I'm like, you may have the time, I don't have the time. Right? And I look at money, time, and energy as all the same resource stored differently. Kind of think of it like water. Water has different forms, right? Gas, liquid, and solid. Well, money, time, and energy are all the same resource stored differently. And so how you use those things matters a lot. And so anyway, that's part of saying no, is learning how to say no to things that don't serve you. And that means allocating time, money, and energy to things that don't serve you. Invest your time, money, and energy into things that grow and develop you and push you into your goals. And a lot of times that means saying no to people. And so I've always kind of been a black sheep in that way. And I'm totally okay with that. My family growing up, there was like, who are you? And I love my family. I'm so thankful for the way that I grew up, but I was so different than them. So I was always very accustomed and comfortable. I never looked to anyone for approval. That hasn't been part of my hardwiring in this life. Now, I fully understand that's not normal. Most humans do look to family, friends, community for approval and permission. However, my experience has been that slows them down more often than not. As a rule, if you're getting advice from people who don't have the life you want, you're going to have the life they have. So you want to make sure you're careful about who is giving you advice. And if, your friend circle or your family has never ran a business, I would humbly suggest they are probably not the crew you want to go to with, hey, is this a good business opportunity? Or is this a good business decision? If they've never made more than $50,000, $60,000 a year, I would suggest you may not want to go to them on how to make $1 million a year. But that's not common. We usually go to the people we love and trust for advice. But they may not always be who you should be going to. And that's, in the United States specifically, we don't have a caste system, right? We don't have a class system. And for people who maybe lived outside of the United States, you realize there are parts of the world that still are in a class system, right? Which is crazy to think about. But that simply means whatever class you were born into, it's like burned into your skin. That is who you are, and that is how you're going to be treated. I have a dear friend who's been in the business with me. She's been with us, Amira, 6-7 years. And she comes from North Africa. And she was explaining this to me. To this day, your last name determines what access you have to what things. Like the classes. That's just crazy to me. We don't have that in the United States. Some people would like to argue that because it would be good for their own result and limitations, but we don't. That being said, most people will not leave their socioeconomic class they were born into. And it isn't because of their fucking last name or the city they live in. You can pick up and leave and go anywhere in the United States, which also baffles me when I see people living places and I'm like, dude, you don't have to live here, right? Anyway, neither here nor there. But my point is the reason is because if your social circle is all like you don't know any different. You're living in a fucking echo chamber. Everybody thinks the same, talks the same, looks the same. Well, then you're going to think that's the reality of the world. And it's super easy to get stuck if that's how you look at your world. So anyway.
Yeah, I heard recently it's you should be careful who you seek counsel from. It could be very different than you seek comfort from.
Oof.
Yeah, it's don't seek counsel from where you seek comfort. And listen, I know for me and my family, there's a few uncles of mine that are incredibly successful entrepreneurs, like massively successful. So in that scenario, that could be some good people to seek counsel from. But to your point, people that aren't in these roles or have made the income that you may be dreaming of, you may want to think twice. So yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And at the point, just to hammer that one, you're not likely going to be judged by people who are doing more than you. That's kind of the thing, is like very often when you're trying to come up, like I had another woman reach out to me and she was like, I was so disappointed. Like I'm starting to build a lot of success. And my husband doesn't believe the numbers. He thinks I'm doing something illegal or illicit. And he's like, he's not supporting. And then I went to my family and they're like, no one, literally, and I quote, no one in our family has ever made this kind of money. What illegal activity are you doing? Right. It's like, right. It's a totally different. She was totally negged out. She's like, what do I do? And I was like, put your nose down and don't look around. Just keep kicking ass.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy. So tell us, so are you a snowboarder? Are you a skier? And what does the mountain look like this weekend?
I'm not sure I know what skiing is, unless you're talking about the thing that looks like a garage sale on the mountain when you fall. I like the single board 2-edge approach where I'm locked and loaded. So
I know you are. I'm just teasing you.
Definitely a snowboarder.
Yeah, I know Sebastian and I randomly have like, I don't know how that happened. We were just texting or something and I was like, hey, I'm out in Park City, and you're like, oh, I am too. I was like, oh shit, what are you doing out here? Randomly go places. And big sports fan yourself. You said fantasy football. Give a shout out to your squad real quick.
Yeah. So this is Washington State, says Pacific Northwest on it. I hail from the Seattle area. So go Hawks. My playoff beard has come in pretty aggressively this year. We'll see. By keys, it will be gone and it'll be shaved back to a normal, manageable beard. But I have a tradition of growing out my beard until the Seahawks are officially eliminated from the playoffs. And so, hey, fun fact, there is only 2 teams in the last 20 years and all of the NFL that have more wins and have gone to the playoffs more than the Seattle Seahawks. But we are always underestimated for some reason. I don't know if it's just because we're up there in the Northwest and people forget that we exist. But for those who keep track at home, the Patriots obviously have won more playoff games. And then Green Bay's tied with us, and Aaron Rodgers didn't make it in this year. So we have a chance to shrew that one up. Booyah.
Yeah, I will tell you, there's a couple people here in Detroit that are not so excited about that game.
Listen, I was actually a Lions fan from way back. I went to a Monday night game. I was in Detroit, I don't know, 10 years ago, went to a Monday night game between the Bears and Detroit. And I love Stafford. And I'm quietly a Lions fan. And I'm excited about the direction of the organization. Them beating Green Bay notwithstanding. Thank you guys. That was a nice one for us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's so funny. I tease some of the guys in our office sometimes. I can tell how they're feeling on Monday morning based on how Sunday goes with the Lions. So we tend to play positive games on Mondays. But I'm a Redskins fan, for the record, so we're no better.
Who's that? The Manders?
Yeah.
The Manders?
Yeah, exactly. So tell me, a lot of people talk about, to become a multimillionaire, you got to have different streams of income, different avenues. Any thoughts around, how to get good at one, and at what point, hey, would you think of doing something else or add on to that layer? Like, I think sometimes people do a lot of things at once and they don't get good enough at the one to even advance their life. Any thoughts around the how to become a multimillionaire and streams of income?
Yep. The best lies are 60% truth. The best lies are 60% truth. I have seen so many people screw this up because of that quote. Now, is it factually correct that millionaires have 7 streams of income? Yes. But what gets missed in that is statistically, most of them became millionaires through a single stream of income and then diversify as they grow. Well, why does that matter? Well, if you try to do too many things at one time, you won't get good at any of them. You won't build momentum. And I call those guys entrepreneurs. And there is a lot of entrepreneurs out there where they're always chasing a bright, shiny object. They're always chasing some new opportunity. They always got too many irons in the fire, and they never really get good at anything. It is much better to stay focused on one thing and endeavor that in what you're looking for is opportunities that are going to get you to the life you want. And so for me, it's like, as long as it's ethical and I can do it with integrity, the opportunity itself is far less, what it is exactly is far less important to me as the likelihood of it getting me to my destination. Right. And then once you've become a millionaire, then start diversifying your energy and your income. But most of them did it through one source and then diversified, because you don't want all your eggs in one basket financially once you get to a certain point. But get really good at a skill set. And it turns out sales is like one of the number one routes to getting to those goals. Like, more millionaires are created through sales than any other channel. It's the one thing, other than becoming the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, it is the one route that you can make $1 million a year in. Like that's it. And it's crazy to think about. Like, no other channel consistently is going to make $1 million plus income other than sales and business owners who, run great, successful businesses. So get really good at a particular skill set, build your wealth, and then start diversifying. Now, that being said, from the very beginning, I would save at least 10 and preferably 20% of your income, no matter how hard that is. Automate that and start putting it away. And the first thing I would do is put enough away that you could go without a paycheck for 12 months and not worry about it. Now, that changes your life and how you look at your life when you legit can do that. And then obviously, if you have any debt, get rid of all debt, especially right now. If you have credit card debt, you may not even realize it, but it's going up, almost monthly now because the prime rate's continuing to go up. So I would wipe out all debt. I'd sell 12 months and then obviously have a rainy day fund, $2,000 to $5,000 that's sitting there too. So those are things I would start doing right away, but I would not be getting aggressive with multiple investment vehicles and lots of different things until I've consistently built a skill set and gotten really good at a particular craft. And it turns out the world rewards excellence. It almost doesn't matter what you're excellent at, right? Like, no offense to Tiger Woods, but Tiger Woods got really good at putting a tiny little white ball in a tiny little hole with a stick. And we found that incredibly entertaining. And he makes, he just turned down $1 billion contract. So that tells you, it's like, well, maybe somebody would merit or argue the merits of golf as an inspiring sport. And sure, but come on, like, tell me how he's serving the world by putting a ball in a hole. I don't know. It's entertaining, and we'll pay for it because we like excellence. So that's what I mean. It almost doesn't matter what you get good at. Just get really good at something, and people will pay to watch you do it. Now, the evergreen skill set is sales, being able to communicate. And especially now more than ever, mediocre is the scariest place to be. And the reason is that in mediocre, you're no longer even just competing against other humans. You're competing against machinery and AI. Right, that will do a better job. So you want to commit to being excellent, get really savagely good at something. And when you do, you will stand out and you will be sought after.
Couldn't agree more. It's interesting. I obviously some of the people that you and I get connected with in other industries, and I was on a call with I'm consistently on a call with like Grant Cardone and a couple of these guys that are in pretty influential in different markets. And I played a video for my staff recently about one of his posts last week, and it just talked about, I told you what's happening. Thousands of people are getting laid off by this company and that company. Kind of listed all the different major brands, and he's like, if you're hearing me and thousands of people that watch this, work for a small organization that's in a niche and learn sales.
Yep.
It's going to happen. And so I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that?
You can, I'm 100% agreement. So just statistically, the highest job satisfaction rates come from people who work in small businesses, not big businesses. And that's escalated a lot over the last 2 years. In fact, if you saw Google and Facebook for the first time in a decade, neither one of them were ranked in the best places to work. And that's tech is, especially with public companies, they're moving by a different priority, right? And so you're more likely to be treated like a number. And small businesses, not always, by the way, there are exceptions in small businesses too, but it's more family, and it has a more family, potentially has a more family vibe to it. Now there's downside to that too, because smaller businesses, you have to perform, you can't hide, right? And so that's a different kind of pressure. And a big company, it's much easier to hide. But I agree. I think working for a small business for most people is a better way to go. But in any case, whatever you're doing, if you are working for somebody else, work for an education or as an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur would be somebody who maybe doesn't want to be the number one, but they want to work in a business that they can exit from and make a lot of money from. Does it make sense? So like for me, my goal is to make sure that the Phoenix 5 never has to worry about money again in their life, right? We built this together. They're entrepreneurs. They built this business as much as I have. That's different than just taking a job and having a job working for somebody else. But if you are going to work for somebody else, work for a bloody education, right? That will compound over time. And then again, sales is the number one skill set to learn, because if you are great at sales, you'll always be employed. No matter what is going on in the world, you will always have a job. You will always know how to hustle. And salespeople disproportionately get paid more than everyone else because they literally are doing the work that pays everybody else's bills. I tell my sales teams all the time, walk down the road and high five everybody and just say you're welcome. I'll go, what the fuck? I'm like, you get paid because I generated revenue. Unless you work for the fucking government, everyone else, only their paycheck is paid by a salesperson.
Yeah. And you may not know this, but I've modeled my strategy internally in our office around your Phoenix 5. So we have a group of people that you'll meet at our next meeting that is very similar and to our different our staff here. So I appreciate that and that example. Although maybe I was doing this a little bit earlier than you've definitely taught me a ton about how to look at our business and how to strategize.
Winning together is a lot more fun. To me, the only definition of success that works is the litmus test is how many people are you helping find their success around you, right? Otherwise it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, agreed. So I don't know how much time you have. Do you have a couple more minutes? Is that cool?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
So tell me, 2022, you learned a lot about yourself, your organization, your businesses. 2023, I know your motto coming up is, what are you leaving behind? What are you bringing with you? Any thoughts about how you look at that and some things maybe you're leaving behind and what you're taking forward?
Yeah, this is a fun and unique year for me because I completed a 10-year goal, right? When I came into the business, I had committed to, the pandemic notwithstanding, I had committed to becoming a senior national consultant. For me, I told Juan East this when I started with him. I was like, hey, this only makes sense to me is if that's the goal. And so I know he's kind of like, yeah. Like, I'm sure everyone says that, but, and so we did that. We completed that this year. And so that's fun for me because we're getting to rewrite all of our goals. So the in business goals or in our business goals is really how many consultants can I help and how many people can I help get to consultant? And then in business goals is helping us build our own companies, O&O, so that there's big exits, right? And then so O&O is a big part of my strategy going forward in business, building campaigns and products and clients that give us a residual, a book of business, or we own the customer. Those are all things I'm focused on. So as a whole, I'm more focused on how do we make the business better. I was excited about what the business was 10 years ago, and it's way better than it is today, but I get more excited about what it's going to be 5 years from now. And so that's a big focus for me. I'm going to continue to run an office in the short term. I debated this back and forth. Do I want to continue to run an ICL? In the last couple of years, I really haven't. I turned it over internally, which with mixed results, it's been somewhat frustrating. So I'm jumping back in the saddle this year to get back to running a tier 1 office, going to promote out some more deals while we figure out, because you want to stay close. It's just as a principle, don't get too far from the thing that's making you money. When you see people screw this up, they get too far away from the thing that's making them money. So I have a reminder that goes off my phone and has for the last 8 years. What revenue generating activity have you done today? And as a business owner, that's incredibly important. And I see guys, an ICL owner, maybe a young PO who's already head in the clouds, too detached from the revenue, where the revenue is coming from in their business. And that's the beginning of the end. So going to stay in the game from that standpoint. Those are some of the business goals on that side. We're going to double down on my personal brand this year. We're really blowing up our consulting firm. We're doing a lot more marketing and getting into different campaigns outside of the business. I'm doing a lot more public speaking. And that's been a lot of fun. So really opening up my craft there and being able to reach more people. And then really starting, again, kind of tied back to our business is creating businesses that fit into our model the way we'd want our ideal business to be. Right. And so I have a heart for small business and some of what we've been talking about. So I'm working on programs that will either support or grow small business while also giving our people the best opportunity they've ever had.
Love it. Love it. And do you mind sharing? I think we saw each other 3-4 months ago, and you're gonna go on a speaking event with some pretty big names. You mind sharing how that went and what it was like, and maybe some of the other speakers that were there?
Yeah, I assume you're thinking with when I was in Vegas for Grow with Live.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a cool event, and we'll be doing more of that this year. But I got to speak. Was on stage with guys that I really love and respect, Gary Vee, Patrick Bet-David, who's now become a friend and somebody that I'm excited to work with in the future. Those are probably the big names you would know. Alex Hermosi, I think, is a great dude. If you don't watch his content, go look him up. He's just a great business mind, young business mind that's really killing the game and does a really great job of making business principles simple and easy to understand. But it was a lot of fun, and that's something that I'm going to be doing a lot more of. That's within my wheelhouse. It's like assess your skill sets. That's speaking and being able to connect with people that way is something that's close to my heart and something I love doing, and it's a great way to impact people.
Yeah, I love it. I know we chatted briefly about it, and it was kind of a leaders meeting, and we do those all the time, right? It's like a Midwest leaders meeting with people that are not just in our business kind of thing.
Well, this is a frame for that. And 10 years of beating on my craft without kind of coming out to the world has certainly helped, but it's given me a different perspective and affirming in many ways. There's an old saying, that which is easily attained is lightly esteemed. And there are meetings that I have been running, literally some of them for 5 years plus, that I'm now getting paid tens of thousands of dollars to speak on. Literally, it's a morning meeting. It's what I've been delivering to my reps for a very long time, that now organizations, people are paying me to deliver the same message. And it's pretty affirming and cool. Like, yeah, wow. And the world wants this information, and we've been giving it away to our reps for free. And that's the problem is that generally when guys come into the business, no offense to anyone, you don't know your elbow from your ass. So you don't really know what works, what doesn't. You don't know what content is good, what not. And if that's all you've ever known, you think like, oh, I can get this in here. Yeah, it's like, yeah, no, you can't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I'll tell you the skill sets throughout, field, early days, leadership and all those challenges, and even, public speaking. I remember the first time I spoke in front of just the office as a leader, and I'm like nervous and shaking, and it was like 30 seconds. And obviously we're able to do that on a bigger scale nowadays. So that's awesome. Well, Sebastian, I know we've had you a little bit longer than I was expecting. I know you're traveling with your Phoenix 5. I just really appreciate you jumping on this morning. Any final thoughts as far as, mind sharing? Obviously, I did my helpless plug with my YouTube channel. I see a lot of people. I'm looking forward to seeing the numbers today climb. But do you mind sharing a little bit of where people can find you and your content if they're interested in hearing from you more?
Yeah, you bet. On any platform, it's at Sabastian Enges, all A's, Sabastin. That's my name gets misspelled a lot, but it's all with A's, SA. I'm most active on Instagram and TikTok. We just started, we launched beginning of this year, our YouTube channel, starting to grow that. So long form content there, but most active, you're trying to connect with me on Instagram and TikTok. But yeah, it's kind of a final thought. I don't think, Ken, I think you would agree with me wholeheartedly. I don't think there's ever been a better time to be in our business. We're likely going into a pretty gnarly recession, the one that we should have had before this pandemic, kind of artificially pushed us out of one. And so I think this is going to be tough for a lot of people. Asset classes have been artificially raised to a point where people are, they have a different perspective of wealth as a result of injecting $8 trillion into the economy that was not earned. It was not produced. It was literally just added digits to a ledger by the Fed. And so now that money's coming back off the table and it's restricting companies. Companies are going back driven by profit, right? And usually the number one cost to a business is payroll, which is why when you see recessions, one leading indicator of a recession is you start seeing massive layoffs. And you're seeing this specifically in the tech industry, but it will have a systemic effect. And I think as a result, we're likely going to go through a pretty rough recession. And, that's scary for a lot of people. For those of us who've gone through 3 or 4 of them now, at least, it's like, yeah, it's just part of the economic cycle. The key is just to be prepared for them and take advantage of them. And our business is uniquely designed to do really well during recessions because we drive revenue. And so we're part of the mechanism that keeps jobs going, that pays the bills. And depending on how bad things get, we do better and better. And companies double down. We're also generally a cheaper option than an internal team. And so you'll see a lot of companies will turn over or outsource parts of their business to other companies that perform better and are a cheaper option than running it internally and having their own exposure and payroll and costs. So we're uniquely positioned, not just from a recession standpoint, which I think is going to be good for us, but also just where we are, the vision of our company and where we're going as a company is huge. And you guys, hopefully you're following our client broker Sidcor and what they're doing and hearing Vera speak. She's got a vision for the future and what she wants to accomplish. And if anybody knows her, you can bet on her giving it everything she's got to make that happen. So this is a great time to be involved with what we're doing. And I think we'll look back 5 years from now and laugh about things that Ken and I already laugh about how things were 10 years ago. And we can't believe how different it is. There was a point in time, some of you, maybe somebody on here remembers this. There was a point in time we used to use this stuff called paper to write apps out. And you had to encourage customers to press really hard because you needed to get through 4 copies. So that you could
press hard, 3 copies.
Yes. And so, yeah, that was an old school way of doing things. And, Sidcor invested $40 million in building out, or whatever it is now, in building out our own Salesforce instance that gives us the technology to grow and build our businesses. So the future is bright for sure. The one thing I will say is no matter how good the business gets, nobody can do the work for you. And that's the hardest part. In 10 years doing this, 10 years plus now, that's the part that kills me. No matter how good the business gets, there's still people that won't get the hell out of their own way. And that bums me out to see, but nobody can do the work for you. You have to do that work and you have to want to do that work. But if you are willing to do that work, it'll pay you back many, many times over.
Agreed. Well, if you're in a place to take your computers or phones off of mute, just want to say thank you, Sabastian. Thank you for your time. Have an amazing trip to Mammoth. Obviously, see you in a few weeks in Jacksonville. Thanks so much for getting up early for us today. Happy Friday, everybody.
See you guys.
Thanks, Sabastian.
Thank you.